The fallacy of innovation. So what I'll do is I wrote some notes down on paper, and I'm just going to read the notes to you, and then I'll discuss it. I mean, when I watch other videos and people read from notes, I'm always curious what they're reading, more so than what they say. So I'll be fair with you. I'll read what I wrote, and then I'll discuss it. And the hope of this video is that you can walk away not really about the understanding of innovation, but rather to look at innovation from a different perspective, and so that you can be critical about the understanding of it, so that you can do what innovation is all about, which is to innovate. So rather than understanding innovation to make it permanent, we understand innovation in a way where we can make it more dynamic and move forward and create other innovations. Okay, so I'm going to go through the notes and I'll discuss each point. The first point I have is the correlation to profit. So what I've seen in the dot-com boom and what I'm seeing in today's market is that we're tightly correlating innovation to profit. And I'd like to discuss what that does to our unconscious and what that does to our collective unconscious. So when we correlate innovation to profit, what that means is we're actually correlating profit to currency or to money. And the reason why we do that is because we then correlate money or currency to purchasing power, and then we obviously correlate purchasing power to endless possibilities. I mean, within the means of the scope of what that purchasing power can provide, it really does provide us with a scope of endless possibilities. And this helps us with our childlike mind, in that we always like to be creative and dream of what we can do, and it helps with stress, dealing with responsibilities and with hopes and dreams. So with purchasing power, we can encapsulate hopes, dreams, responsibilities, everything in one context. Now, the reason why I'm chaining that together is to suggest that there's a fallacy in innovation when we tie that to endless possibilities. What we do is we actually strip out the chain therein and suggest that innovation in and of itself is providing us endless possibilities. The fallacy of that means that we make an innovation permanent, and that stagnates us from being able to come up with other innovations. So I have another note here, profit persuasion. So what that does dynamically in that process, when we tie innovation to profit, is we have people who want to have their hands in the pot. They want a piece, and some people become the profit persuaders. So what happens when you have an innovation and you tie that to profit, then you have people who want to get into the pot, and so people might not understand the innovation per se, but they understand the profit. So you have profit persuaders. So I put a term down for what that is, and I term that as fund blazers. Fund blazers. Where I got this term from is there was a time in history where we had an organization known as a nonprofit entity or nonprofit organization. So what a nonprofit did was a nonprofit would fundraise, and they would fundraise for a charity. Well, what we've done is we've taken that exercise and we redefined it, and we stood in the way of innovation, and we became fund blazers. And so fund blazers persuade to raise money, and they're raising money. They basically put a blazer around innovation, or they put a blazer around an ideal. And from there, even more profit is generated, more so than what the innovation is providing. There's more profit being generated, and that's from the exercise of the fund blazer. So that becomes one of the fallacies of innovation, which is it actually further inspires the notion that an innovation provides endless possibilities. So I have another note here, which is breaking down innovation. So just kind of like an understanding of innovation conceptually. What I wrote here is incremental, disruptive, architectural, radical. So these are all different categories of innovation. So I'm not going to get into outlining each of these. You can find out on the internet what each of these mean. So I wanted to step back from that and just talk about innovation high level first. We'll have other videos to get into incremental styles of innovation, disruptive innovation, architectural innovation, and radical innovation. But all of these categories have one thing in common, and they all have a cost. So any innovation out there, anything that is innovative has a cost. The cost is kind of like a sidecar to the innovation, and that sidecar is not very appealing to the profit, and so usually the costs become hidden. So they become hidden. So the fun blazer, for example, usually drives the value of innovation, and the fun blazer also unconsciously hides the cost. So there is a cost associated with every innovation. Hence, I'm getting towards another fallacy of innovation. So I have another note here on scalability. So what we do with innovation is that we always try to suggest that that the future is a reflection of today. So we take an innovation of today and we suggest we just need to scale that out, and that will drive even more value in the future. The fallacy there is that tomorrow becomes the realized cost of the innovation today. So any innovation we have today, the hidden costs are the future. So the hidden costs are what come out in the future. So that is another fallacy of innovation, is the scalability factor, assuming the future will reflect an abundance of something based on an innovation today. But the other perspective of that is to look at the hidden costs, which will be the future realized understanding of what innovation has in store for us. So I have two examples here of innovation that we can go through to understand a perspective of looking at potentially the cost of innovation from one example. And then I'm going to go through another example to show like a comparison to show some value. So the first innovation I'd like to talk about is the automobile. So something very simple. So an automobile consists of rubber, metal. There's an innovation of combustion, batteries. The real innovation of an automobile is the crankshaft or the camshaft, or with electric vehicles, it's the rotator, the stator, and if let's say we're talking about Tesla, also magnetics is a big part. So there's some aspects of an automobile that have very, very interesting aspects of it that are innovative. But when you're talking, let's say, about combustion engine, or all the metal that's required, or all the rubber, there's some costs associated with that. There's a profit motive. So I have a note here, profit motive. So obviously there's a profit motive with automobiles. What that has done is it has made that innovation permanent, meaning that we've spent the last 100 years focusing all of our energy entirely on the automobile. But I don't know if you know this, but an automobile was actually an expression of an electric horse. So all we were trying to do was replicate an electric horse. This is what came out of the replication of an electric horse. And now we spent the last 100 years focusing all of our innovative potential on the incremental changes of this innovation. But there's a lot of costs associated with an automobile, as you know. But I'm just going to review some of those high level just to get you to understand that the future is where the price is paid for a lot of these hidden costs. So the surface area. The surface area has been consumed on our planet. So we've had to pave the whole world away in order to make this innovation work. So the question is, how real innovative is this? Aside from the value, aside from the profit, aside from all the potential possibilities, all the endless possibilities, how innovative is this really? Also the energy and overuse. So with an automobile and all the attention we've put into it, we've actually been able to create an individual capability to take advantage of this innovation. So every individual has this luxury. So let's focus on the fun blazers within context of this innovation. So the fun blazers, they're focusing all their attention on extending the incremental innovation of an automobile. And on top of that, they're raising funds to further pave the world. And they're actually, I think our future really is going to be focused on bridges and roads and tires and batteries and hopefully magnetics. I mean, magnetics will be the next innovation, but I'll talk about that in another video. And I'll talk about magnetics in another video because of the abundance thereof of something. And so that's going to lead into my next example of an innovation. So first I wanted to end off with the automobile, suggesting that there's a lot of hidden costs associated with this innovation. And these are hidden costs that you're not really focused on because of the value per se and the endless possibilities that this innovation provides, that you're not able to step back and realize maybe that there's other things we can do. This does not have to be permanent, does it? So let me talk about another innovation. And the purpose of this walkthrough is to look at another innovation, to look at some favorable aspects of an innovation. So I have a note here, lignin. So lignin is an innovation. Now, a human didn't invent this innovation, and so you're probably not interested to hear about this innovation because a human didn't invent it. But not everything in reality always needs to be to the credit of somebody or the credit of the fun blazer. Maybe there are instances that we can review and realize of innovations that have occurred in organic life. Like we all are one and the same. So why not give some attention towards some other aspects of life? So a lignin, which is what trees are made of, for example. So what is the innovation of lignin? So what lignin has done is that it has allowed plants to increase its surface area to the sun, or increase the capacity to enhance the sun's surface area. That's a huge innovation. And what's more appealing about this innovation is lignins are produced from air. So you can look it up on the internet. It's quite amazing that the mass of a tree is mostly made up of air. And let's take that a step further and look at this innovation and how appealing it is. And the mass of the lignin and the value of it, which increases the surface area. So why is the surface area enhancement an important aspect of an innovation? Well, look at the cell. So the cell in itself is more efficient the more surface area it has. I mean, to a threshold, but the more surface area a cell has, the more efficient it is. The more surface area a tree can gain from the sun's energy, the more efficient the capacity is to consume that energy. So what's nice about this is, I'm going to take this a step further. I mean, if we can take innovations and we can associate that with endless possibilities through profit and through money, can we not look at innovations in other ways and also chain that to some other aspects, maybe not through profit, but other things which are quite amazing? Isn't it amazing that trees, the massive trees, are built off of carbon dioxide, and that's where they get their mass from. And it's also interesting that humans breathe carbon dioxide. Is it not also interesting that trees are all individual? Every tree is an individual, just like a person. So isn't it weird how we have this balance? Is it part of the innovation? This balance that has been provided, is it part of the innovation? Are people here to help trees in that aspect, to provide that balance? We breathe out carbon dioxide, plants provide oxygen, and so we have that continuum, that balance. Is that value? Do we need endless possibilities through monetary gain or through profit, or are there other potential profiteering or gains, not just through currencies? So I just have a note here, human balance. So so that's what this is about, is suggesting that this innovation actually provides a human balance. And I have the notes here, balance, equilibrium, homeostasis, which is quite amazing how we have a balance within ourselves as well. So now I'm going to compare that with a bad innovation. So my notes here is, bad innovations have a high cost and they're hidden. But when you compare it to this innovation such as lignins, and how amazing this structure is that makes up trees, and how it's able to converts an abundance of something to create value of that, and then also create a balance. So I have a note here on project, assigning a project. So let's say I was to assign you a project, and I said to you, come up with some innovations, and all I need is a short-term return, so something with a high return, and don't worry about all the hidden costs associated with it. I'm sure if I gave you that assignment, you would probably come up with 100 innovations. If you had in your unconscious that you're unlimited with the hidden costs involved, you could come up with 100 ideas. You might even come up with an idea where just to boil water to create electricity, you might come up with an idea potentially where you could heat up the water using something radioactive that would potentially have a hidden cost that might take hundreds of thousands of years to cool off. If you were to tell me that, I would say, okay, well, there you go. See how easy it is. It's very easy to come up with innovative ideas where you have a realized gain, but with a high hidden cost. So what can we take from this? Well, I have some notes here on other fallacies. So I'll have some other videos. I'll talk about the fallacy of Bitcoin, talk about the fallacy of client server, I'll talk about the fallacy of Western thought. And these will be other videos, but for now the takeaway is, can you think of some ideas or some innovations that are not profit motivated, but rather looking at the abundance of something, being able to take advantage of that, and then creating some type of balance as being able to offset the hidden costs associated with that innovation. Also to take away, realize innovations are not permanent. They are band-aids. They are always tools we use, and we need to always continually come up with future ideas and future innovations. Purpose of this video. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll have some other videos coming out. I'd like to do a video on the fallacy of Bitcoin, the fallacy of client server, and the cloud. I do have a very good video on the fallacy of Western thought. This is a project I've been working on for 20 years, so I'll have that out too. I'm excited for that. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave some comments if you are interested in me going into other details of any particular innovation. I'd like to suggest, when you have this mindset, that it's a lot easier to understand under the hood how innovations work when you have that mindset that it's not permanent and that you have the ability to come up with new ideas. So from there, have a great day and thank you.